And welcome to Weather and Ag in Focus on this Tuesday, April 28th. It sure doesn't feel like April 28th. It feels more like it's March out there. Chilly temperatures right now with most areas in the mid to upper 40s. And we're not going to see temperatures move much, a whole lot today. In fact, the next few days are going to be a little chilly for this time of the year. I'm Chief Meteorologist Dean Wysocki, along with our Ag Director, Bridgette Readel, and a special guest host today, Justin from the Lakes. Hey, thanks for pinch hitting. I was not supposed to be here today. I was supposed to have the day off, but a few things changed, so I figured I'd come into work, and Addison says, "Oh, you're back." I said, "Yes." He said, "No, well, Justin's filling in for you." I said, "All right, I'm going down to the bar." No.
Yeah, and it's well, you weren't supposed to be here, and then I'm getting texts from Bridgette that she's not, she's feeling a little under the weather, and I thought, this is my first show. I'm going to do it by myself. Now, for the audience too, I shouldn't. I should tell you, I'm not that Justin. I'm not Justin Storm. I'd like to say that I'm better looking and maybe a little smarter.
Oh, that's easily
certainly
done.
Charming. Wait a second. Do we have a caller already, Madison?
Hey,
Yeah.
you know what, Dean? That's a lot coming from you, hey. I had to chime in here, and now that you're here, we got the old crew back together. But yeah,
Well, hey, stranger.
Hey, how you been?
Doing good. How about yourself, buddy?
Hey, man, I'm just hanging in there, living life.
All right. Good deal.
I didn't want it to go off the rails though, but I just I don't want.
Well,
I don't
this
want
would
to
make
confuse
it go
anybody
off the
that
rails.
it's not Justin,
Very
not
quickly,
Justin
too.
Storm. What's that, Justin?
I said it can go off the rails pretty quickly when we're all here together.
Yeah.
I like having all the Justin squared situation.
Yeah,
Perfect.
Yeah.
that's what we say when he would come on Jay's show, and I was guest hosting Jay's show. So anyway,
We have far too many Justins on the show
Justin
right now.
squared.
So Justin, fill us in for yeah. I mean, you haven't been on air with us for it's been a couple years now.
What's it been? Almost 2?
Yeah, I think so. So fill everybody in. What have you been up to? What are you doing now? You've got a new one roaming around the house.
Yeah, I got a little 9-month-old, just about walking at home, and a 3.5-year-old. So the family is thriving and just living life and enjoying it. I've had a few fun opportunities in career switch, which was the reason why I left the radio station. But doing really well on that, and on top of that, launched my own weather brand. So we've just been kind of staying busy for the most part between a full-time job, a part-time job, and full-time dad.
Good deal. Good deal. All right.
I appreciate when I see your forecast, Justin. Thank you very much. You've given me plenty of things to draw from.
Oh, you were very welcome.
Well, hey, thanks for calling in for a second. I appreciate you doing me a favor too. I know you're busy working, so.
Wait. Come on. He doesn't work.
Well, no, he's not like you, Dean. Works a yeah.
Couple hours here, couple hours there.
Didn't want to say. When I told him, I said to him today, I said, "Yeah, I'm going to be guest
Oh,
hosting."
he left. I was going to give him more grief. He left.
Well, when I told him I was going to be guest hosting, he said, "Oh, Dean's out. What a shock."
Yeah.
No.
Well, there was good reason. So.
No, I'm just teasing. Thanks, though, Justin. Appreciate it.
Oh man, that's good to hear from him.
Yeah.
It's good to hear from him. He's a good kid. Yeah, he's no, I did. He called me up a couple days ago. I was chatting with him. He said, how's the job? And I was checking with him. How's your new gig going? And he said everything's good with the kids. So I said, well, family comes first, and make sure the family's doing good. And I forgot to ask him if 2 is the limit, or are they gonna go for
I don't know. I talked to him about that the other night too, and
yeah?
it's hard to tell.
He didn't give an answer. He didn't give a straight answer. Well, I'll give you a straight answer on the weather, and it's chilly. That's for sure. We've got temperatures well below normal for this time of the year, and that will continue as we head throughout the rest of this week. Normal highs this time of the year should be right around 60. Normal lows are right around 40. But instead, we're going to have temperatures in the afternoon in the 40s. We'll top out today pretty close to 50, about 49, with those clouds thickening up. So we're not going to see a whole lot more sun for the rest of the afternoon, with a little bit of a breeze out of the northwest, about 10 to 20. And then partly cloudy down to 30 tonight. So we're still dealing with those mornings below the freezing mark. And then Wednesday and Thursday, rinse and repeat. Both days pretty much similar. Sunny to partly cloudy with highs right around the 50-degree mark. And then we'll warm things up a little bit on Friday, back into the mid to upper 50s. And finally, I can say we're going to have a nice weekend. The last few weekends they haven't been the best, that's for sure.
Well, legitimate question, and maybe that some of this is, I don't hope it's not duplicitous here, but with this up down, was this in the LRC as far as, it's 50s and 30s this week, a little pop for the weekend, then 50s and 30s next
that
week.
roller coaster ride. Yep, and the LRC had it pegged. And if you want to know what May looks like, so I put an article online this morning what the LRC is predicting for May. So if you're especially agriculture, because
wet, right?
Yeah, we want to know when these wet spells are going to be. And overall for the month of May, we're looking at precip-wise being at or just a little bit above normal. We're not looking at abnormally wet May, but we're going to have a couple of wet streaks in there. So, again, WDAYRadioNow.com, it's the LRC May Outlook, and kind of break that down. But the first half of May looks a little cooler than normal. But the good news is, after about the 13th or 14th, we warm up quickly. In fact, I think you're going to like, a lot of people want to know, what's it going to be like Memorial Day? Big Memorial Day. It looks nice.
Okay.
It looks nice and warm, and it should be on the dry side.
When it rained this last weekend, I don't know about here, but in Lakes Country, we probably got at least a couple inches.
Okay.
And I swore I saw Bridgette out on the streets getting violent. That's what she was not happy about that moisture.
We really don't need it. But we picked up, in general, it was about 3/4 of an inch to an inch, and as you said, a little bit more into Lakes Country.
Yeah, I mean, literally, the dock put in last week, right? And we're probably a good height on the lake right now. But over the weekend, it was actually after that rain. Now, this is not related to the rain, I believe, what really was a couple inches, but the lake was also up a couple inches.
Wow.
It moved that much. I was like shocked because I look at this one point of my dock and like, my goodness. But anyway.
Yeah. So like Bridgette said last week, we really don't need the moisture around here, but we're going to get what we get. And now we're going to dry things out this week. So this will dry things out. Now, Bridgette, is this, with this stretch of dry weather all this week into the weekend, is this going to dry it out enough to get out in the fields, or are we not quite there yet?
It depends on which field we're on. We're only looking at temperatures in the 50s. We need full sunshine. We need a little bit of a breeze. We have more and more folks doing things each day. Right now, if I look at central North Dakota, we're seeing some soybeans starting today. More corn started northeastern Minnesota, where we didn't flood on some of those river bottoms. We are seeing some of that drying out, but it really depends on the field. Beets went in a number of places, sugar beets, before we had a little bit of the rain. Up around Mayville, we've got hard red spring wheat and canola that's planted. So it's really a matter of the when and the where, and each field individually. Lots more tillage and fertilizer work going on as we're waiting to make sure those conditions improve before we put the crop in the ground.
I know out by me, Bridgette, I'm in Otter Tail County, right smack dab in the middle. There's a lot of farmers that were in the fields this last week. Think
about your terrain and how you've got those nice sloping hills too, and
Yep.
so you've got good runoff.
Even-
It's not as flat, so that's a great sign.
Even with the heavy rain, they were still in the fields.
Yeah, I mean, before that, I did see one out there today, actually on the way here, but otherwise last week, a ton were out.
Wow, good.
Yeah,
All right.
and a lot of that might have been tillage versus planting. They're getting their fertilizer on, that type of thing. So it does make a difference what your topography looks like. If you have those rolling hills and you can get shed some of that moisture so you can get into them, that's awesome.
All right. Now we got, you want to take Todd before we go to break here, Addison? Okay. All right. We got Todd on line one. Todd, what's going on?
Hey, guys. I got a couple of deals here for you. First, I got a rain report for you with my professional rain gauge. This is just a couple blocks east of Discovery School down by 40th Avenue South in Fargo and South University.
Mm-hmm.
9/10 of an inch on Sunday and Monday.
All right. Okay.
And then the question I have is, with Justin Storm, he said that he's got a side deal going with a weather prediction, and Bridgette said that she looks at it. How do you access that?
He's on Facebook, and it's under Meteorologist Justin Storm, and you can see it there, Todd. I hope that helps you.
Oh, it's a Facebook deal, then.
It's a Facebook deal, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
But a lot of times, even if you don't have an account, I'm not a big Facebook guy myself, and you can still search that stuff out.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Very good. Thank you.
All right. Thanks, Todd. All right. So that's, like I said, about 3/4 to an inch across the area. And I know it helped a lot of lawns, but now we need the sun and dry things out and warmer weather to really green things up. When I went south, a few days ago. Boy, are they, they're in full gear in areas of far South Dakota, Nebraska, and into northern Kansas. They're well underway down there. But, yeah, we're a little late this year.
Varies where you're at.
Yep, right.
I'm going to be on a Twitter live space here at 2:30 today with some folks around Mount Sterling, Illinois. They're kind of in the little bubble on Illinois. They haven't turned a wheel all the way up through Peoria.
Too wet.
They've had enough rain, and it's been too wet for them.
Too wet, and boy,
so it's a lot of variance.
Yeah, and boy, did they get severe weather too this month. They've gotten hammered in Illinois.
Where's that cutoff, Bridgette? What's the date that, boy, they got to be in by the end of May or else, or what is it?
You know, everybody's got different insurance dates that come up, and so it's going to vary by the county that you're in within your state. So those guys are going to be further south than us. They can also shorten up their hybrid day length, and they can go a little bit later into their planting as well if they want to get something in that's a shorter season variety. So they'll be able to get there. Yeah. Next up, after the livestock report from the American Ag Network, we have Brad Olstad. He is here with Cephas Group for On the Auction Block. Let's talk farm equipment next. And that voice is Brad Olstad. He is with Steffes Group. Happy to see you, Brad. Welcome to On the Auction Block, our monthly segment all about farm machinery. So, did you just come from an auction? Are you closing an auction? Aren't you always closing an auction?
Well, believe it or not, we're not closing the sale today. I was traveling out in western North Dakota, eastern Montana, and good to get back. I was kind of hoping for some warmer weather, but it was snowing Billings yesterday, so I'm glad it's not snowing here. So
Yeah, you were saying you saw about 6 inches in the winter wheat area?
that is correct. Yeah,
Yep.
The winter wheat was about 6 to 8 inches high and just as much snow on top of it, but it's awful hardy. They need the moisture.
Actually, that would be great for winter wheat because folks talk about pulling the nitrogen out of the snow for that crop, and most of the winter wheat in Kansas and Nebraska is just crap. It's gone. So if Montana can reel this one in, good for them. That'd be awesome.
So true. We need the
So-
moisture.
So if you're out there, well, that area does. And if you're out there, Brad, what are people looking for? You mentioned in some messages you and I exchanged that it's sort of soft right now for self-propelled sprayers, but what's the hot topic of discussion?
Well, I tell you, we had a nice string of auctions the last couple of weeks, and we've really seen the resilience in the commodity and also in the items that we're selling at public auction, especially that third and fourth generation. We did a nice farm retirement sale for Mark and Shirley Stoneman, and they had 70s and 80s and 90s vintage machinery. We had a Case IH 7120, brought $56,000, and it was a two-wheel drive. 855 Versatile went out to Central North Dakota, 12.5. And it's just resilient in the low hours and the machinery that's been well cared for and shedded. And it's surprising, the number of interest. We do our data on the front side and the back side of the website, and we're having representations from 20 to 25 states per auction. And I think that's what's keeping our market afloat. I really do.
And Brad, with everybody knows the economy not the best right now with rising gas prices and whatnot. Is that affecting things at all, or not quite yet?
Not quite yet. You know, it's a concern to everybody, especially with fuel and with the nitrogen, the fertilizer. That gets to be the biggest hot button topics. But, you know, we're always optimistic as production agriculture, as you guys all well know. And the opportunity for a bargain is always there, and quality always sells. And the price of new is not coming down. A guy talked to me last week, and he says he wants to get a new tractor, and he said 6 to 8 months out. Wow. Okay, that's kind of shocking right now. So this used equipment deal, especially the high-end stuff, is the volumes and the amount of pieces that are out there are shrinking. So the opportunity's there, and if there's an opportunity, people are going to bid, and the prices reflect it.
Question for you on the diesel front, too. You brought that up about is if DEF is going to be rolled back, what does that do to the used market? And, you know, how's that going to change the prices, supply and stuff?
That's a fantastic question, and it's been a talked about question. In fact, we were talking about it this morning because some of the requirements on all this pre-DEF, and if you're going to delete and do some of those things, some of these guys, if they do not allow the delete, that value of that piece of equipment could be affected in the negative way. And if they're allowed to delete and they're not going to have altercations as far as the government and restrictions on deleting, it's very challenging for us as an auction company. We always have to disclose. So most of the over-the-road trucks that we're selling, we say performance enhanced, okay? It's a gray area, but it's still something that to a buying public, the delete gets to be a big issue. And it's something that with these changes that are happening, what happens in the next administration if they roll it back to the other way? So there's a lot of uncertainty right there, to be honest with you.
And you can imagine that's probably what's going to happen with that, is what I would think.
Well, it sure is a talking point, and somebody that's in production agriculture that relies on those diesels, they just want to have a clear direction. You know, this back and forth. How do you produce? I mean, Caterpillar got out of the big diesels, and there's reasons for some of these manufacturers to get out because they just can't comply.
Well, maybe that was the answer to this next question, but I was going to ask, what's the toughest thing in the farm equipment auction business right now?
I think the big frame tractors, specifically John Deere, the 9RX 640. There's an abundance of them out there, and there's just too many, and the price point. What we're seeing, a strong demand is that quad track, 450 to 620. It seems like that's percentage-wise the best-selling track tractor out there right now, the Case IH. A lot of deers out there. It's the price point. People are looking for reliability and affordability. And quite frankly, there's just too much volume out there, and there's 30 to 40% off on some of those 1 and 2 year old track tractors.
Well, I was going to say, so it's a double-edged sword, right? There's too much quantity, but that's also going to give better pricing, right? So,
well, we're telling people that if they have the wherewithal to afford a big ticket purchase like that, now is the best time ever, because once this inventory dries up, you're going to be an order buy, and it's going to be full boat retail. It will be.
Interesting.
Totally agree with what you're saying, Brad, because when you look at those tractors, that's a very limited pool of people who need that size horsepower. And with the trades going on, there's only so many folks that can buy that, especially with an increase in interest rates. And they're having to go to their bank and negotiate that.
Well, it's so true, because you have that high horsepower tractor that's $600,000, $700,000, and some of these second and third generation high horsepower tractors at $200,000 to $300,000. It's a heck of a lot easier to cash flow a $200,000 to $300,000 high horsepower track tractor than that $700,000 to $800,000, and it just economic sense.
Brad, I have recently started listening to the Degenerative Ag podcast. This is a group of farmers from up in the Trail, Grand Forks County area. They are auction fiends. They love buying stuff online. They talk about all their auction purchases. And one of the questions they had on their podcast for an auctioneer, so I'm going to pose it to you. Sure, the church ladies, especially at live auctions, make sure that you have a sloppy Joe and a piece of pie, but how about a bar? Because we all know at those charity auctions, a little bit of booze goes a long way in getting good bidders. So, are you looking at a liquor license, or what kind of things could happen if we do that, Brad?
Well, I tell you what, that is something that we've went through the hard way, and it's called the School of Hard Knocks. If you have somebody that spends $100,000 and they can prove that they were intoxicated when they bid, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, exactly. I didn't think of that.
So, in all fairness and all fun, when we do charity events, I like to have a lot of fun when I'm a bid caller. And I'll even buy them a drink if they bid one more time. But there's always a certain time and place for that type of activity. And if you want to get a phone call where you're, Houston, we got some trouble, that's when that happens.
Oh, Brad, I really appreciate your honesty, because it's very true. When we're talking those high ticket items, we got to be just a little bit more careful than that bid on the Henry rifle, that type of thing. So, Brad Olstad with Steffes Auctioneer, thank you for joining us for On the Auction Block. For those of you who have questions, you can reach us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000. We will return with headlines right after this. as well as listening, you can check out our live stream brought to us by Lighthouse Commodities. They make sure that you can watch us bright and shining on Facebook, YouTube, and Acres TV. Thanks to them for that, as well as Superior Grain Equipment, making sure that we get your emails. You can send them weather@flagfamily.com. I'm ag@flagfamily.com. And again, thank you to Superior Grain Storage. They make sure to provide grain handling, drying, and storage solutions for your farm. Check them out, superiorbins.com. We are joined today with our fill-in co-host, and then he's just a co-host because Dean was back and unexpectedly. And so Justin from the Lakes is here. And so, Justin, you said out in Ottertail County where you're at, you saw some field work, etc. Have you noticed some cattle or horses going out on pasture?
I have. Yeah, I've noticed there's a few big cattle operations out by me. So, yeah, there's been a lot of activity out there. And I want to say there's even been some seeding. It's been more than just tilling, but certainly not everybody's. Yeah, not everybody's. You know, I do have a question for you. So, you know, I heard an article it was on WCCO TV in the cities about farms because of the cost right now, and I mean everything, right? The fuel, the fertilizer. That this one farmer was talking about how it would be $1,000 for them to plant right now per acre, and so they'd lose about 300. So they're choosing to lease for 300 instead. Is there a lot of that going on in general? Do you find right now? More than
I find that
normal?
more of the minority. Yeah,
Okay.
I think that's the minority situation right now. I don't think as many folks are doing that. A lot of that depends on your size and scale. You know, how big is your operation, and what do you have accomplished? Did you go and buy transports of diesel fuel so you had a price locked in and you're ready to go? Did you have your fertilizer all set and ready to go? And what changes can you make in that? This morning, Successful Farming talked about 25% of the U.S. corn crop being planted, but that can also mean some folks forego the early start fertilizer. They're not putting anything down with the planter to the tube directly to the seed. They're going to wait and do supplemental fertilizer later. Or you have folks that had already bought and they were set and they had their fertilizer needs met and they're already planting it in the field.
Interesting.
There's some variation.
Yeah, it's just just kind of they made it sound like it was a little more. Of course, the news more dramatic, a little more dire than that. But
yeah.
And Bridgette, I had somebody ask me when I was down in Nebraska, and I didn't have an answer for him. I could give a educated guess, but I figured I'll shoot this to you. Is okay? How much longer is this going to take? Let's say this conflict in the Strait of Hormuz goes on for, let's say, through June, July. How is this going? Is it going to make that big of a difference if this gets settled quickly? Is it going to make that big of a difference if this goes on for another 2-3 months in terms of prices for fertilizer and whatnot?
I think, keep in mind, a lot of the fertilizer for 2026 was already on our shores by the time planting started. Okay, so the impact on fertilizer will really be felt for the 2027 crop. Not that it isn't hurting now, because you have a certain percentage of farmers, probably a solid 20% of farmers didn't buy their fertilizer prior to seeding, hoping they would see a price dip in the market. But it will truly affect us going into next year. Diesel fuel prices will impact us at harvest because you only have so much. You can only store so much before you've got to order your next transport or tank load or whatever it is you're getting. And so that'll impact us at harvest. Farmers in Ukraine have already started saying that they may not plant this year because they know their diesel prices are so expensive. Also the same in Australia. And that will also hurt them once we get to fall. If they're not planting, now we have a shorter supply. Will that mean that our commodity prices will elevate? Potentially. But at the consumer level, your greater concern is going to be the diesel cost for transportation, because even if we can plant and harvest a crop, but we can't move it to market once it's processed, meaning we can't get your loaf of bread to the grocery store, meaning we can't move your fresh beef, etc., that diesel cost is going to impact us consumers because of the transportation costs more so than anything first. Yesterday, with my assistant ag director, Gavin, we talked about the cotton market being impacted by this. So many petrochemicals, whether it is with ammonia as well as crude oil, is part of the synthetic fibers that everybody loves to wear, the polyesters, the nylons, the lycras, etc. Well, because of that, those prices are going up. So you can anticipate 15% increases in back-to-school shopping clothing. Additionally, that may mean that more cotton is purchased here in the U.S. to go to some of those Southeast Asia markets in order to substitute cotton for some of those previous synthetic fibers. That may help us raise our price on cotton here in the U.S.
Couple follow-ups on that. So what is the normal time that we'll start ordering for fertilizer for 2027 in the farms? And what's
July.
and then what's the absolute cutoff they could wait until this date and still be safe?
So a lot of our folks are going to start replacing fertilizer in their commercial warehouses, in their retail and distributor sites in July. They'll start bringing more truckloads back in, doing those back hauls. We'll fill all the way through fall. We'll see trains coming up here whenever product is purchased, right? And part of that is you bring a train in to fill grain. And this can be particular in Minnesota. You may fill grain or get it to a barge, but then you can do the return trip with fertilizer. It just depends where you're hauling to. Farmers can buy fertilizer from now until the time that the planter rolls. There's not necessarily a cutoff date. It just depends on when you decide to peg that price in the market and what you want to buy. There's a lot of variability in that fertilizer price right now. We haven't had a run up like this since I think it was 2012 was the last really big run up in fertilizer.
And the other question I had was, it just kind of hit me when we were talking about commodity prices, is if you have farmers, I mean, the worldwide ag picture out there that aren't planting around the world, and I've heard that same thing that you just stated, will that almost be a wash? In other words, like if they had been planting and buying fertilizer, then the prices could have been bad. But, since they're sitting out right now, then maybe we're not selling as much fertilizer, right? So the people that are buying it for near the same price or just a little bit more marginally.
We may see those fluctuations not only in what happens on the global price, but then also, what does that do for supply? More supply means you have a lower price because people want to move that out of their way. If we could see commodity prices kick up, that'd be fabulous. The unfortunate thing is some of those places, so let's say Ukraine raising wheat, a lot of their wheat went to those Middle Eastern countries. Their wheat would be cheaper, less transportation costs to get it there. Also, they have a tendency to raise a slightly lower quality of wheat. I'm not saying their wheat is bad, but it's closer, and it's probably not quite the same quality as ours might be for our bakers and millers. And so in that instance, our wheat is not necessarily an easy substitute for those Middle Eastern countries because they don't look at wanting to pay more for it to bring it into their markets. So there will be a lot of trade negotiation and discussion amongst countries and what this is going to look like for farmers by the time we get to harvest. It will be a very weekly evolving situation and what might be happening.
Interesting. Well, nothing boring for sure right now, right?
No. And the guy who's got his fingers on the pulse of that will be Greg Hansen when he joins us on Friday for Market Uncovered when we talk about commodity prices and marketing. I've said many times the bright spot is certainly what's happening in the beef industry right now is those folks are able to shine and recapture a price that they haven't had for a while. But everything is cyclical. And if corn price goes up for those who are finishing out on corn, that will impact the beef price, right? Because then all of a sudden they have a higher cost of production that goes along with it. And really right now, I would love to tell you that we are happily rebuilding the U.S. beef herd, that we have more baby cows being dropped and they're going to stay and continue to calve out. But we have some heavy drought-stricken areas. If you look at the drought map, I think 16 states across the nation currently under drought conditions, some of the heaviest in large cattle-producing areas like Arizona, New Mexico, Texas, and Oklahoma. There are still herd reductions going on where they don't have enough grass or hay and they can't afford to feed them, and they're sending those animals to slaughter. Ugh. So that's changing our picture once again.
Yeah, and there's in terms of the drought down to our south and out into the southwest, there's really not much relief expected through at least early summer. So not good news for them. Yeah, no doubt about it.
And I would love to hear from the farmers locally what their thoughts might be on the whole fertilizer situation as well. Because if folks are out doing tillage and planting, they've got their hands on some. They'd be welcome to, even if you're shy, you can send me an email, ag@flagfamily.com, or you can call us on the JLA Insurance phone line, 701-293-9000.
That's right. So, all right, we're up on break. When we come back, we're going to recap the weather. When are we going to warm up? I mean, come on. This is getting a little old here. We want some warmer weather. At least we're drying things out. That's the good news. But I'll recap the forecast, and Bridgette will have a couple of ag topics to hit on as well when we come back. And welcome back to Weather and Ag in Focus. 1:51 in the afternoon. Temperatures outside a chilly 47 degrees. In fact, 40s are pretty common across the area. A little cooler in the Northern Valley. Temperatures, Northern Valley and in northwest Minnesota, only in the low to mid 40s. So unseasonably chilly for this time of the year. We need some warmer weather, and unfortunately, we don't have a lot in store for this week. We're going to have temperatures below normal. The good news is, as the week goes on, we'll start to see more sunshine, so that'll help dry things out. Winds will not be overly strong this week, but like today, we've got more clouds and sun out there. But as we go throughout the week, we will see a little more in the way of some sunshine, and that'll help warm things up. But today, we're stuck upper 40s to right around 50 across the area with that northwest breeze about 10 to 15. And you can carbon copy that for tomorrow. We'll start off with more sunshine and then build some clouds in the afternoon with temperatures, again, right around the 50-degree mark. And then as we head into Thursday and Friday, a little more sunshine with highs in the low 50s on Thursday, and it looks like mid to upper 50s on Friday. And then the 60s come back into the forecast for the weekend with sunshine. Wind's not that strong, so we'll really start to dry things out over the weekend. And then as we head into Monday, we could have temperatures in the 60s, but then a cold front hits, looks like late Monday into early Tuesday. That could give us a few showers, and then bam, we're back into some cooler air that's being dragged down from Canada. And we're going to be in, it looks like, according to the LRC, we're going to be in that northwest flow to start off the month of May. Probably for about the first 10 to 13 days, we're going to see that northwest flow. It's typically a drier flow. You'll get these occasional storms that'll swing in, but for the most part, not a lot of precip, and temperatures remaining a little bit below normal. But as we head towards mid-May and through Memorial Day, that big ridge that's been producing the drought conditions out in the western part of the U.S., that slides eastward, and we'll get under that ridge, and that means, A, we dry it out, and B, we really warm things up. I see 80s in the forecast as we head towards Memorial Day weekend. So that's good news for a lot of people. Good news in terms of we'll finally warm things up, and we'll see that stretch of drier weather for about 7 to 10 days as we head just past mid-month. We got a couple of storm systems before that. And again, you can log on and see our LRC calendar for the month of May on our webpage, WDAYradionow.com. I believe I put that up on our Weather and Ag and our Facebook page, too, this afternoon, so you can check it out there as well.
Well, we were talking about cropland, and I did make mention of pastures. So back to my question to Justin, and that was, have you seen cattle out on pasture out in Otter Tail? Have you noticed the pastures greening up and anything that looks out of place, perhaps?
Not greening up. I actually haven't noticed anything out of place. What are you getting at specifically?
Weed control, because it's
sure.
a great time for us to be looking for those things. You know, when you drive by some of those little pastures and you see super tall weeds, especially the ones with the big broad leaves on them, and you're thinking, okay, do cows eat that? Well, goats might. Cattle don't really like it, and horses even less. And so for those who are considering doing some weed control in pastures right now or their hay fields, this is an excellent time. First things first, make sure you know what weeds you're going after. Some can be noxious to your livestock. Others are just a nuisance. And the more they encroach into the pastures, the less grazing there is, good grazing, for your livestock. So make sure to identify them. Go see your agronomist or take them to your county agent. Make sure you get it right. Then really read the labels as to what you want to choose to use. Every label will also talk about their grazing and rotational restrictions. So that means that if you spray a pasture with a herbicide, you have to wait X amount of days before you can run cattle back out there or horses. Or if you're going to cut it for hay, you have to do the same thing. You got to wait X amount of days. Know what those are. Once we get to about mid-June, most of those plants are sort of set for the year, and you might as well just hold off and not spend money until the fall, until to try to go after them for more weed control later on. So keep that in mind for those of you who've got small acreages, horses, that type of thing.
Yeah, talk to me in another week. Yeah, I was going to say, talk to me in another week, and I bet you that things will be greening up. But and I think it's been, honestly, this weather pattern too, Dean, you know, because it's just been all over the place, right? I was just showing him a camera shot from my house. The grass is getting green, but it's just every time everything starts to pop, then it gets back into these temps and slows down again. So
It doesn't help, does it?
So
No.
it's been your first time on Weather and Ag in Focus. You will probably be helping out as a fill-in co-host from time to time.
Absolutely.
Well, what do you think? How's Ag versus some of the other shows you've been a part of?
Well, it's quick. Because usually I'm doing 3-hour shows and I'm having to prepare them. So, in fact, I was telling you, but I'll tell the audience. I mean, when you do that show, the farm show, what was it called of the whole day thing?
Oh, the WDAY Radio Farm Show.
Yeah, that's people don't realize that's a lift, folks. I prepare for a 3-hour show, and especially sometimes I'm doing these national shows too. I've done a few of those on this station and other stations, and I'm telling you, like a whole day. And I know you had guests, but that's still a whole lot to plan. I'm just like, I just cringed when I saw that. Like, how do you do that?
It's a lot of work, isn't it?
But no, this is like
give a lot of good resources.
Yeah, this is very bite-sized, easy to do. And I mean, honestly, I've always, I didn't really tell people this at the beginning, but I've always loved ag. I live by a lot of, obviously, farmers. I talk to a lot of farmers. In fact, I don't know if we have time for a super quick story. I'm at a dinner with a friend. This was a few years ago. I never told you this. I had a dinner with a friend a few years ago, a dinner party, and there was a couple farmers there, and I don't remember the name right now, but the one farmer, I said, yeah, there's the ag director at the station. I was talking about the station. I said, her name's Bridgette Readel. He's like, oh, yeah, I know Bridgette. Yeah, she talks a lot. I said,
he's not wrong.
No, it's not bad. And so I said, well, yeah, that's why she's on the radio. So no,
that is exactly.
And I've been a
right.
listener to the show too, so I love it. I love it. Just listening myself. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Much appreciated that you took the time to come on in and kind of get your feet wet and what it might be like here in the ag business. And as always, if you have questions or if others do too, we really welcome them. We'd love to hear from our listeners who want to reach out. You can again do that, ag@flagfamily.com, weather@flagfamily.com. Thanks to Superior Grain Equipment for making sure that we get those emails every single day. That works out great. Looking forward to tomorrow. It'll be Wednesday weather trivia, and we'll be joined by Matt Pearson. He's with Highland Livestock out of Montana. He's going to talk about how they're getting beef to food pantries, because who doesn't want to see more of that?
All right. Well, that'll do it for Weather and Ag in Focus. Justin, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me, guys.
All right. So don't go anywhere, though. The Jay Thomas Show, that's coming up next.